Hey, Roger Martin here from Billings, Montana. Good day. This has had over 1 million views, and this doctor who has done this research for decades has enough inside information to know that this stuff really exists, and people have really been threatened and killed because they've tried to release this energy information out. Here goes. We'll make some comments as we go along.
What happens when you have something that would fit on this table and it will run your house? Pulling energy from the quantum vacuum or the zero-point energy field. You don't need utilities.
Just the fact that you won't need petroleum products or utilities. You won't be able to control it through some corporation or government entity, means that it's off the list. It's not going to happen until these corporations and governments release it and want to release it. Probably won't happen until after price comes. But I remember him telling the same individual telling a story about a man who was a super genius. Smarter probably than Tesla and smarter than probably anybody we know. He'd already worked with these energy systems, and there were different levels of energy systems he'd worked with. And he just wanted to release the lowest part of this. And they'd already proved it in a government lab that his lowest part of his stuff had been released and worked. This guy had 5 controllers around him at all times to control where he was at, what he was doing, what he said, who he visited with, etc., at all times. And yeah, they said yes first to this idea of releasing this information, but some higher controllers, some higher people came in and said no. They put this guy out of this country and in a prison cell or whatever controlled area for a year. You make him understand that he was never to ask that question again, was never to even think that again if he wanted his freedom. So they brought him back, got him back after about a year, and it will never happen again. Even though they produced that in a government lab, they shut that government lab, made all those people sign documents that they never talk about it. So this is what type of situation we live in. This forbidden technology is never going to come out until the governments change, and the corporations change, and the power structures change on this earth. You can bet on it. Other individuals have talked about how they've had weapons put to their head. You go down this rabbit hole, you release this information, you're dead, your family's dead. Everybody you know around you is dead. Believe me, this is what type of mindset we work with on these black op areas.
J.P. Morgan famously was reported to have said to Nikola Tesla, when he had a car that had a little antenna on it that was running around where the batteries were charging themselves, J.P. Morgan said, if we can't put a meter on it, we don't want it. Dr. Putoff, he does zero-point energy research. He's worked for every 3-letter agency. Told me personally that he knew we already had these technologies, but that if he were to bring them forward, he would be killed along with his family and children.
Now this is Dr. Stephen Greer. He's talked about this before, and he's the one that mentioned the story I previously mentioned. So you get to know and understand this stuff's not going to come out anytime soon. Even people that get close to it are killed. The guy that created the energy from water, drove his four-wheeler around across the United States, was poisoned in a restaurant, said so. He was a twin. His brother went into Canada. This information was never brought out again. He figured some frequency to break up water easily and efficiently, and it produced oxygen which could be burned in a combustion engine. It would literally get rid of the energy companies. He was offered money to shut up about it. He wouldn't do it, and he was killed. Now, you could study all you want about this stuff and find out different stories on this stuff, but believe me, it's not coming out. And people that are getting close to it, it's not coming out with them either.
In 1927, there were 2 billion people in the world. Now there's 7. So of those 2 billion people, there were very few people living with cars and electricity in their homes and et cetera and so on. Now you have 7 billion people and billions more people living on that system, which has become entrenched, bureaucratically built into our funding mechanisms from the state, local, federal level of support, and also where there are a lot of very powerful stakeholders. And so from a rational point of view, you'd say, well, these technologies would get us off of oil, gas, nuclear power, no more Fukushimas. But from the point of view of people who are looking at the national security equation from a macroeconomic stability point of view, this is their worst nightmare. 99.9% of the people on planet Earth would benefit from this. There is a very, it's not the 1%, it's the 0.0000001% who would not benefit from this because they are the ones sitting atop the petrodollar system, the macroeconomic order, and particularly the fact that it is run, and everything we're using is run on a metered linear energy source, even solar and wind. If you begin to talk about the phenomena of new energy, free energy, anti-gravity, UFOs, you're stepping into an area that is the most sensitive, compartmented intelligence in the history of the United States. First, I want to...
Now, get this in your mind. This stuff is all departmentalized, means Navy might not know what the Air Force is doing and vice versa. Matter of fact, other Black Op whistleblowers have said that the Navy is far more advanced in this alien technology than the Air Force is, and that it has been that way for a long time. So the Navy has been reported to have floating, what we call them, floating vehicles that would be like an aircraft carrier, where people come from space and land on it, and then shoot back off to outer space. They cloak the bottom side so you can't see it easily with the eyes. That's been reported.
Give you sort of the big picture, and the big picture.
All right, so there's so many things with this. The big boys aren't going to let you play. Guys in the Black Ops aren't going to tell because they have their lives threatened, their families threatened. Some of the stuff that's coming out is because they don't have families or other people that they can kill besides them. And it's slowly coming out from different sources. So Corey Good has been one, another guy, I can't think of his name, but at least 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 6 individuals have come out and told us that we've been using this alien technology for at least 50, 60, 70 years, back engineering it and fighting wars on Mars and different planets, and even went out to Saturn and other places, worked with different intergalactic groups, stuff in Antarctica. I mean, it goes on and on. But believe me, people in control don't want these things easily outed.
Is that we haven't needed fossil fuels since about 100 years ago. This building was built in 1913. Certainly by then, Tesla, Faraday, Maxwell, particularly the Maxwell-Quaternion equations that were chopped off and changed.
Now again, why were these formulas changed? The guy that worked at CEO of Skunk Works said that we'd got some of our formulas wrong, that energy, time, space are all connected. They're all connected. There's no disconnection. But when we get those energies right, they're all connected. And so is psychic energy, psychic abilities. They're all connected. Anyhow, there's so much of this we don't know, and it's been kept hidden from us, as governments well know, in the know, and even people like President Trump and other generals and other people. If you're not a player, you can't keep quiet about it. You're not in the know. We talked about Ike, David Eisenhower. General Eisenhower was president, and Truman, and different people. They were mad because they couldn't get into this information. They weren't privy to it. So ever since the Second World War and before, this stuff has been controlled. Um, we had an individual claiming he's from Venus, and he knew what 200 languages he claimed. Told us things. Appeared on the White House lawn. They came and got him. He went to the president. Tried to get the president to release some of this stuff and talk about it. Generals told him no, so they shut him up. So this stuff's been going on for a long, long time.
As you may well know, some of you who are engineers, has resulted in us having an energy sector that requires us to burn something or heat something up to create steam to get us electricity or to run our cars.
All right, let us resume this.
However, 100 years of really advanced physics, which weren't that well understood 100 years ago in terms of very high voltage systems at certain resonant high hertz, they call it, cycles per second, would result in this excess power. And it was observed by Faraday, and it was observed by
Excess power, high hertz. Faraday and others observed it. Tesla.
And it was observed by many others, and said, where is this coming from? Professor Dirac, D-I-R-A-C, said, well, he called it the Dirac Sea. And of course, Tesla called it the ocean of infinite energy. And it's been called various things. The modern term is the zero-point energy field. If you create this kind of vector into the zero-point energy field, and you create a certain counter-rotating vortex, let's call it, which is almost a Sufi-like phenomenon, you get what's called lift. And you get a phenomenon that's known as electromagnetogravitics. Now, the pop culture would call it anti-gravity.
So again, gravity, electronics, electromagnetic, it's all connected.
Which is really not correct. What you're really doing when you see a UFO moving and it's going straight up 10,000 miles per hour against gravity is that it's actually in a space-time bubble. It's creating its own environment, shall we say. So there's no restrictions to normal aerodynamic formula. And so the thing can lift and go straight up at those velocities. And if it goes through another level, that the entire object, the mass of the entire object, can become massless. And that's...
Now he talks about different levels. Time, energy, gravity, anyhow, there's different levels, all this stuff. You have to be totally brain dead to understand that we are on just some basic levels, that there are much higher levels of knowledge and understanding in physics which we have not commonly tapped into.
When you enter into what's called the trans-dimensional physics, when something moves from one dimension to another, or transverses one dimension to another. By definition, all interstellar vehicles are trans-dimensional.
Now this is an interesting comment by him. Our current physics just won't get us outside the solar system, let alone to other galaxies. Just won't do it. We don't live long enough. So we have to go through a different dimension of time and travel to do that, to get there. And it's possible, but not in the current understanding that we have.
Let me repeat that. If it's interstellar, it is transdimensional. It is not getting here at a subluminal or below the speed of light velocity. This is the key thing that people have to understand and began to be studied. Now, in the early days, let's go back to the time of Tesla, they were observing with usually DC power systems, direct current, as opposed to alternating current, which we use in our homes, which Nikola Tesla invented or came up with. That would have this effect where a certain amount of energy would go into a system, more would come out. It wasn't really accepted until Dr. Casimir, a physicist named Casimir, and the Casimir effect, where this was published in mainstream physics journals, by the way, proved that there was this zero-point energy field, that there was this energy that was left even after you cooled down all the atoms and all the activity in the universe down to absolute zero, which is a specific temperature. And there's still this energy there. And that zero-point energy field, as it turns out, is embedded everywhere in space, not outer space, here in this room. So that every cubic centimeter of space in this room, for example, has enough power to run at least the United States for a day.
All right, let's get back to this.
A cubic centimeter. So it's an enormous field of energy. So running our planet on this energy field would be like taking a thimble out of the Great Lakes or something of water. It's a trivia, it's a rounding error. However, as J.P. Morgan famously was reported to have said to Nikola Tesla when he had a car that had a little antenna on it.
I'm going to stop that part and go past.
Well, why doesn't Bill Gates do it? Or why doesn't the president? It's always, why doesn't someone else? Of course, if you go to the president, he'll say, no way, Jose. And if you go to billionaire X and billionaire Y and billionaire Z, many of whom I've met with, they'll go, you know, one of them once said to me, we all want to be first to be second. Great expression. You hear it a lot in business. When it's a very controversial science, no one wants to be the first to stick their neck out. So this becomes then a leadership issue, which is what I've tried to provide some clarity to in my own humble way, being not a significantly wealthy or powerful person at all, but knowing what I know, try to share it with the public and try to create a momentum towards disclosure, not only of the fact that we're not alone in the universe, but that the secret behind these UFO propulsion systems and energy systems would give us an entirely new planet. Beautiful.
We're going to end it there. Dr. Greer, so much going on. Can't tell you the probably $100, $200, $300 I spent on looking at UFO stuff with so-called authorities. All I know is we've only touched the very, very tip of the iceberg. If any of this black ops stuff is true, and I believe some of it definitely has to be true, the military's been into this, Army or the Air Force and Navy have been into this in the United States, China, Russia, other countries for at least 60 to 70 years at least, and probably the United States has been in it longer. I would say probably more like 80 to 100 years. Maybe even as far back as the First World War or the turn of the 19th century, over 100 years. Definitely too many things going on, and the most brilliant minds have all done this behind closed doors and with the government control on it, because believe me, they don't want this out to the public. Again, this is Roger Martin from Billings, Montana. Good day. Happy New Year. Let's get on with it and get some results done with what we do know. Good day.